Ark Survival Evolved is a game known for taming, and it definitely does have a lot of creatures, but herbivores and carnivores never really get talked about separately. So here are the 5 best Ark Carnivores. Also, before we get into it, make sure to like and subscribe as it helps the channel. So, in at number 5 is the Allosaurus. Now personally, I do think this is a really underrated carnivore that many more Ark players should utilize, as it is quite a simple tame if you come prepared, and considering they spawn in packs, they're not that hard to find, and you can tame a couple of them on your first go. These things will spawn in any mountainous region of pretty much any map. The islands, you can find them all across the north areas of the map. And the reason why you'd want to tame a pack is you will get a pack buff. Not all creatures have a pack buff, but the Allosauruses do benefit from this, and there will be a leader of the pack, which will be the highest level Allosaurus, and that is going to be the creature providing the bonuses to all the others. But the alpha of the pack can change. If a creature gains to a higher level than the current alpha in a pack, the pack will shift. So if you are riding an Allosaurus in your pack of Allosauruses, always make sure to look for the orangey glow coming out of the Allosaurus, and if it switches to the one that you're not riding on, switch to the new alpha, as you should really have control of the pack benefits. Also, on top of that, their saddles are unlocked quite early on compared to something like a Rex, a Spino, a Giga, or a Carnodontosaurus. So these things are quite accessible in the earlier stages of the game, and these are also great for doing bosses. Yes, something like a Rex is going to get you much further, as they have a lot more health than the Allosaurus, but the Allosaurus's damage stat really does stack up for boss fights, and if you have quite a few of these things, probably about 5, 10, maybe 15, you'll be able to get through quite a lot of bosses with absolute ease. But maybe don't go for alphas with this thing, especially not the alpha dragon on the island, as it probably won't go so well. Either way, once you have actually reached a player level to defeat the alpha bosses on Ark, you're probably going to have upgraded your carnivore. So overall, the Allosaurus is a great mid-game Ark tame. In at number 4 is the Rex. Now this is definitely one of the most popular creatures in Ark, but in my opinion it isn't the best carnivore for you to have. Definitely in your top 5, as this will get you through pretty much every boss with ease, apart from the Moder and probably the Alpha Dragon, as these things aren't the greatest at swimming and they'll probably drown underwater anyway, and for the Dragon it has a very unfair buff against carnivores, so for that I would use a Therizino instead of a Rex. But either way, the Rex has a great balance of health to melee damage. Now notice that I said balance of health and melee damage instead of it deals the most melee damage and it has the most health. Because in Ark that is simply not true. And what you really want in a boss creature is a great balance of health to melee damage and a creature that is still capable of actually fighting. The thing about the Rex is it has a great melee stat, but also on top of that it has a really solid health stat, which actually allows it to survive through boss fights. With something like the Allo, for some of the longer boss fights, it simply can't go all the way, as it doesn't have a very good health stat compared to something like the Rex. That is why the Rex is higher on the list, because yes, their melee damage is comparable, and with Allo pack buffs, the Allo's melee damage might even be a bit higher than the Rex's, but the Rex's health is just so far superior from the Allo that it really makes it a lot better. Now this may be a controversial opinion, but in at number 3 is the Yeti. Now I really think this is a lot better than the Rex, as it is a lot more useful in some cases than a Rex in a thing like a boss fight, or just in general, as I find Rexes are a bit clumsy, whereas the Yeti doesn't get stuck on literally everything that Ark has to offer, and the Yeti still has a great health stat with reasonable damage, and if you have a pack of Carnos, you can command them with your Uti, and it is really a great creature for just getting things done. Whereas a Rex, in my opinion, is just too slow and too clumsy, and personally, I just get really bored. Now, yes, would a Rex do a better job? Yes, but the Uti is so much more versatile than that. And also, on top of that, it has its two iconic roars. It has a Fear Roar, which will debuff the enemy creature, and a Courage Roar, which will buff your creatures, and also still debuff the enemy. Now, it is definitely a pain when a Uti Fear Roars, and then you're on your creature, and then you've completely lost control of it. Which is also why this is a great creature to have in a PvP scenario. As if someone is trying to raid your base, if they're on something like a Pteranodon, which is quite common for PvP, you can simply Fear Roll them, and they are gone. Right, now into something a bit less controversial. In at number 2 is obviously the Giga. It wouldn't be a top 5 carnivores list without putting this thing here. It is such a great carnivore for a lot of things in Ark. I wouldn't use it to go resource gathering, as its stamina stat is absolutely atrocious, but it has 2 uses in my opinion, which really do make it a great carnivore that every Ark player should have. And both of these uses do come on Extinction. I don't really tend to use it on any other map apart from it. The thing is, with Gigas, they are great for doing OSDs on Extinction, which is just great for getting loot in general. If you didn't know what an OSD is, it is an orbital supply drop. So it's essentially a supply drop where you have to battle through waves of creatures, and then at the end of it, if you did protect the supply drop from all of the creatures, you will get the amazing loot out of that thing. Also, on top of that, on Extinction, it is great for doing any of the bosses and the Alpha King Titan at the end. Yes, you can use something like a Mega Mech, but that isn't a carnivore, so it wouldn't be on this list anyway. Or you could use Titans, but still the Giga is really the way to go. But also, if you are trying to kill Titans with this thing, you are going to need a lot more than 1 Giga. But luckily, they are great for breeding, and a great mutated bred Giga is absolutely insane compared to one that you have just tamed from the wild. This will take ages though on official settings, as it takes a week to raise a Giga, which is far too long, so don't do that. Now finally, in at number 1 is the Carnodontosaurus. This thing may be controversial as well, as you may prefer the Giga over it, or you don't have experience with this creature yet, as it is still a very recent addition to Ark. But I still think it really does deserve this number 1 spot, because it does everything a Giga can, but all the things that I hated about the Giga are now gone about this thing. For versatility, I would still prefer a Uti. This thing is still a bit clunky, and will get stuck on a lot of Ark's resources, like rocks and trees, and yeah, it's hell with some big creatures. But still, unlike the Giga, this thing actually has a reasonable stamina stat, and you know, you might want to actually put a few levels into this thing as well, because it isn't great at base, but if you put about 5-10 levels into this thing, maybe 20, this thing is actually really good for traveling. But obviously, you're not just going to want to level stamina on this thing. You're not trying to create a stamina beast out of the Carnodontosaurus. You're trying to make a great battle creature, which is also why I would definitely use it for OSDs on Extinction, and also Titans on Extinction as well. This has sort of replaced Gigas for me. I kind of tend to use a mix of the both. I'll be on a Carnodontosaurus myself, but I will have a few Gigas as well. The only thing that really holds this back is its taming method is a little bit awkward compared to the Giga. But anyway, that is going to mark the end of today's video. If you didn't agree with the list, then comment your top 5 below, and I will see you all later. Bye.